All right, everybody. Well, as promised, I am with Paul Calvo. Paul is he's got a really good story. I kind of briefed you guys on what we were going to talk about today, and Paul was gracious enough to share some of his time with us. So I'm not going to try to explain the man when I've got the man in front of me. So, Paul, thank you once again. Um,
Yeah, thank you for
and
having me.
let's get started and maybe you can start out with just basically what you're doing here.
Yeah. So I am finishing up my last quarter at Stanford. I transferred in 2021 to Stanford from Fresno City College. I, while I was in prison, um, there I didn't have any opportunities to pursue education. There was nothing. And so I paroled. Went back to school in 2017, started at Fresno City College. 2021, I was accepted to Stanford. I was accepted to a lot of universities, and it's and I feel like it's because I leveraged my past. And when I say past, I mean my time in prison. Uh, we're fortunate nowadays to be, you know, in a society where, yeah, it's not perfect, but we can leverage our hardships, such as prison and, everything that comes from that, and turn it around and use it for good. And so a lot of colleges, a lot of universities liked that I was able to turn things around in my life and go from prison to education. And so Stanford wasn't the only university that accepted me. I got into actually some of the like best schools in the nation for electrical engineering. But then, of course, once Stanford accepted me, it was a no-brainer. And then also too, I saw the financial aid package, and I pretty much had a full ride because of the financial aid package. So yeah, so that's how I got here to Stanford. I'm finishing up now. Like I said, I'm graduating after this quarter, and in a couple weeks, I'll be moving to Houston to start a job with Phillips 66 as a midstream engineer. And the reason why I push STEM, uh, really, I would like to see everyone do electrical engineering, because it's a degree that, like, like, for instance, midstream engineering, I'm not doing anything that's EE related. Like, I'm not doing anything that's circuit related, electromagnetism. I'm not doing anything that we learn as electrical engineering major. But the simple fact that I have that degree, they're like, okay, no, you can problem solve, you can think critically, like that's what we want. Um, and so like I said, I like to see everyone do electrical engineering, but in reality, STEM for since we like I said, live in a society, right? That's um, it's an amazing society in my opinion, but one of the things is money, right? Like, we're a society that's very driven by, like, okay, what's your salary? And so I know, at least for me, that was a big part, because if you're used to running around the streets and you know selling dope, whatever the case may be, right, you're used to having money. And so it can kind of be a bummer if you put in all this work and your starting salary is something that, a barista at Starbucks is making, right? And so, m- you know, that's why, like I said, I push for the STEM, but, um, you know, STEM in reality leads to very, fulfilling careers outside of money. But I don't know, I guess my point here is, like, yeah, education is the way to go, but also too, you have to think the long term, right? Like for me, I can do a bachelor's degree, and my starting salary at Phillips right now is well over 100,000 a year. Um, and so, I don't need a graduate degree, whereas some places, some fields you do, professors, all that, right? And then you have the really good salaries, right? And opportunities, benefits and whatnot. So I kind of like want to paint that picture of like, yeah, pursue what makes you happy in school, but also have that plan of like, okay, how can this lead to a, great career?
Sure, sure. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I talk about a lot and that concerns me for my students is that livable wage when they get
Mm,
out. I mean, I can't blame
yeah.
somebody for, going back to what makes them the money
Yeah.
if, you're going to get out and you can't even support yourself or your family or whoever you're trying to support.
Yeah.
That's one of the, and California's horrible for livable wage. So,
Yeah.
that's one of the
Yeah.
big concerns for me is really um, helping my guys find something that they're passionate about and that's gonna money isn't everything, but is definitely something.
Yeah.
And it's something
Especially if you have a family to take care of.
sure,
Yeah.
exactly. um some of the one of the things that you mentioned right now was your financial aid package. Is there anything I'm only one man, so I've got to do a lot with my curriculum, but I also try to find supports and stuff for my Rising Scholar students. Um, do you know of, or if maybe if there are, maybe you took advantage of, are there any kind of grants or things along the lines of financial aid for previously incarcerated individuals?
Hmm. Uh,
That's a big concern for my guys is, I get
yeah.
out and how, I'm getting my education for free now. I get out, how do I continue that?
Oh, 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 okay. Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, sorry. I'm misunderstood the question. Yeah, no, they still continue to get financial aid at the community college. And, uh, I mean, so the community college is on a semester. It's 2 semesters equals a school year. And so, uh, each semester, I want to say they get everything covered and they'll probably get like 3 grand, 3 to 4 grand, like cash, direct deposited to their bank account. Uh, as far as scholarships and grants that are, that target formerly incarcerated, I I want to say I saw maybe one on LinkedIn that was through like it was through some organization of like the formerly incarcerated in higher education. Um, but that was something new because I didn't see that at my time at Fresno City. Um, my scholarships were mainly like engineering related scholarships. And like I said, I just leveraged my past to
Sure.
say, hey, this is, where I came from and this is where I'm headed. And so I was able to get a lot of, engineering scholarships because of that. Um, but I will say that, um, so for instance, if some of your guys are finishing up their associate's degree and they're getting ready to transfer, so say for instance, like, uh, just throwing out a scenario. Let's say, uh, guy X is getting ready to parole, I don't know, sometime maybe around April, but he has his associates and he knows that he will be starting a university, in August, which is 4 months after his release. Before he even starts in August, what he can do is at the same time as he's applying to universities, is he can apply to the Jack Kent Cook Scholarship, and it's kind of tough to get in, but like I said, leveraging our past, we have a good shot. I was actually a semifinalist for that. Um, and I feel like the only reason why I didn't get it is because so they and this is I'm gonna put you guys up on game here. Scholarships like this that are very like, they give you like 40,000 a year. They are in communications with Yale, Stanford, the Ivies, MIT, right? Like they talk. And so Jet Kick, the Kent Cook scholarship, they know, okay, this guy is going to Stanford. We know he's going to get accepted. More than likely he will, or he is going to get accepted. And we know based on his major, he's going to say yes, right? And so they will kind of leverage that and say, okay, well, he doesn't need the scholarship. Why? Because Stanford is going to give him a full ride. At the private universities, you get everything paid for if you make less than 150,000 a year. So they see that, and so they know. But I say all that because, like I said, we can leverage our past to then, get these opportunities. And so, say they know they're going to start in August, they can apply the same time that they're applying to universities. And if they get that scholarship, then they're going to get paid to go to school. So um, that's a really good scholarship. There are quite a few out there. Um, but I feel like it's just a matter of like looking them up, because I just don't know them off the top of my head.
Sure. No, I gotcha. Um, let's move into a little bit of the past, not too far into the past, but a little bit in. And I've got these questions, like I said, a lot of my guys made these questions. I made a couple of them. I asked our dean, I asked a few other people if they had any questions. Any of these questions you don't want to answer, obviously, you're not on the hook. We're not paying you to do it. So you don't have to. But one of the questions was, what was the turning point for you? Was there a specific moment that made you realize you wanted to change your path from where you entered into the system and where you're at now? Kind of a deal. Is there any specific thing that might have
Yeah.
light bulb went
Um,
off?
yeah, there were or actually there were three moments, and I'll make it quick. By the way, are you pressed for time?
No,
No,
nope,
okay, okay, cool, cool. That's good to know then, because I thought there was going to be like a cutoff, and so,
no.
but okay, then I'll keep a long story long. Um, so the first moment was I I get to a yard that I can't walk on, and the administration still puts me out there, and it turns into this huge, you know, uh, went from a one-on-one to, me fighting a couple guys, and then I go to the shoe, the same thing. They put me in the rec cage, and I get into another altercation, and so um, at this time in that shoe, you could only make one phone call a month. And so a month goes by, and I finally call my mom, and she's no dummy. I've been in solitary confinement before, different shoe programs. And so she heard like just how like silent it was in the background, like and she knew right off the rip. She was like, "Hey, you're back in in the hole, huh? You're back in the shoe." And I was like, "Yeah." And then she was just like, you know, she asked for what, and I wasn't gonna tell her because I was just like, that's part of the the politics to get down, right? But she was like, yeah, don't even bother telling me. She's like, I already know more than likely what happened. But then she started to go on like, is this what you want for your life? Like, you want to just be this gang member in prison that's just doesn't know how to act, can't survive out here in society. You need to be incarcerated. Like, do you want that for your life? And she was like, when you were born and when you were a little kid, I never thought you'd be in prison. I never thought you'd be doing this wild stuff. Like this is disappointing. You're a disappointment, and bro, like just hearing that, I was like, oh my God. Like, good thing at the time I was, wrecked alone, housed alone, because I was just bawling that night. I was just like, dude, like my mom, like, you know, I'm Latino, so our moms, bro, that's like, that's that's our, human version of, Saint Mary, So, hearing that, I was just crushed and devastated. And then so I end up doing if I do that shoe term, I get kicked out. They ship me to another prison, and while I'm at that prison, uh, there's this older gentleman. He was super cool. And by the way, this is the federal system. And so, uh, things are a little different in the feds than they are the state. But he was a lifer. He'd been down like 30 something years. A solid cat, and he was a black dude. And even though like obviously we're not in the same car, right? But even though like we weren't, but we were still cool. He felt the need to show me his paperwork because he was like, man, I want you to know like who you're dealing with. Like I'm not some, snitch, some, piece of shit or anything. So like I said, he's a stand-up dude. He's been down at this time. He'd been in prison longer than I've been alive, So, um, he's a stand-up dude. And one time he invited me to some Easter event. And really what it was just like, a bunch of guys getting together and eating like good food, not like the prison, chow hall type stuff, right? And so um religious events, whether it was like Ramadan or Christmas or anything, depending on what your religion was, you're able to in the feds like order like certain ingredients, and we can all go in the kitchen and cook it up and then move it to the rec center where we can all hang out and eat. But I'll never forget, as I was, since the yard was a split yard, there were some homeboys that were on the yard, and I was walking to the rec center, right? Because I was gonna go check it out, and the old man's name was Roach, and so Roach invited me, and I kind of felt at the time that I wasn't really a religious person at the time. I was doing it more for uh like the respect thing, right? Like in my opinion, he was a convict. He was respectful, and like I said, he didn't have to show me his paperwork, but he did. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, that's a pretty stand-up dude. And so I head over to the rec center, but as I'm heading over to the rec center, I see some homeboys on the yard, and they ask me where I'm going. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go check out like this little church event thing, go get my grub on, right? And I could see it. I could see their minds where their minds were going, and I could see the look they were giving each other. And then as I get to the rec center, from the hallway that leads to the rec center, once you're locked into that hallway, there are windows that you could see onto the yard, and so I could see them, and I could see what they were trying to do and who they were trying to like go talk to. L- Long story short, they were trying to smut me up. They were trying to start a campaign to have me hit because I was going to church. And we don't have anything that says we can't go to church, right? And so even if I wanted to, and like say I did want to turn religious, we have nothing that says that we can't do that. And so in that mind, I was like, dang, dude, like up until this point, like and uh, you know, this is this is just what it was at the time. I'm not trying to like brag or put on this show, but up until this point, I had put in a lot of work, and every time I put in work, I was alone. Like I was never with homeboys when anything was cracking off in all the prisons I was at. And so in my mind, I'm like, dude, you guys haven't even done shit. You know what I mean? And here you are trying to like smut me up, trying to start this campaign against me. Like, fuck you guys. And so it was like that moment where I was like, nah, I'm cool. Like, you guys are scant. Like, this is like, I can get it. Maybe, you burn me for a shot of coffee or something, whatever. Who cares, right? Like, coffee's coffee, whatever. But like this is some bullshit. And so, that was like that moment where I was like, okay, that combined with the incident with my mom, I was like, no, this is some bullshit. Here I am putting in all this work for what? Just to have some freaking little peepee boys trying to screw me over. And so moving, I still continued doing my time, and you know I didn't leave the yard. I didn't take off on them or anything. I just continued doing me, and and eventually that whole thing died out, and so then from there I get into I get into some more trouble, and I get transferred to another prison. And it was at that prison where I was watching a football game, and it was Texas A&M. They were playing, and the stadium, all that. Dude, I just sat there and was like, "Dang, dude! Like, I could have been in college, I could have gone to college. I could have done stuff like, right, like my mom said, she had high hopes for me when I was a kid. And so it was in that moment as well where it was like, dang, dude, like when you get out, you really have to like get your shit together. You know what I mean? Because like I said, all these different, events combined kind of just made it be like, dude, I don't want to be sitting next to these fake motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Like, and for what? Like to try to look hard to, you know, uh, have high points and be at, high security like who cares? You know what I mean? This is fucking stupid. And so it was, those three combined that like when I got out, it was just like full speed ahead, bro. Like even when homeboys would hit me up and be like, "Hey, let's kick it." No, I'm good, bro. Straight up, I would just, and I was like, not super disrespectful, but I was just like, leave me the fuck alone. Like, I don't want anything to do with you guys. Where were you during my time? Like, nah, I'm good. And so, everyone got the message, fast that, hey, Paul's not, he's not coming around. He's not going to kick it. Like, leave him alone. And so, that's when I decided to pursue college.
Nice. No, and that's one of the things I think that everybody, regardless of your past, you said something a couple times now about, like what your mom's told you and things like that. And, I really go in to my job, as an instructor. Um, I prefer to teach rising scholars. Um, and I just see that, we're all born good. Every one of us
Mm,
is born perfect.
yeah,
It's the world that
yeah,
really jacks us up,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, do we have to take ownership of it? Sure we do. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
there's things that just happen in life that, I mean, I think about that and like what you said, I can just imagine like my mom holding me as a baby, and
Hmm.
like the mistakes I've made
Yeah,
along the way, like she never in a million years, would have
yeah,
imagined that I would have done some of the stuff I did. But,
yeah,
keeping that in my mind helps me do better every day, I think. So,
yeah.
um, another one of the questions that was asked was, while you were still um, trying to get out, while you're still on vacation, um, how did you deal with self-doubt and setbacks? Because we've all got them. Were there moments when you questioned whether change was possible? You mentioned like watching that Texas football game. Did you still kind of doubt yourself after that, and how did you move through it?
So I didn't doubt myself that I was gonna like do good, like I was gonna, turn things around. I did, however, as I mentioned when I spoke at Colinga, um, I never knew that I could go to a university from community college. So eh, thinking like that, I just was automatically like, oh, okay, then school's not my is not going to be my jam. I'm not going to do school. I decided to pursue welding at that time, and so my first job, I was out for 2 weeks, and I got a job welding, and so I was doing that, and that was going to be my um, my way of supporting myself and then future family and whatnot. Um, but I'm the type of person, and I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but I will hold a grudge until it either kills me or that person comes up and says, "Hey man, I know this was not how it's supposed to go. My bad," right? Like I will hold that grudge until freaking wheels fall off. And in doing so, that grudge is what pushes and motivates me to, you know, get out and do. That was my mindset, but right, because when you're locked up, everyone leaves you, right? Like, yeah, you may have your old lady that you talk to, but you know, uh, if you got a solid ride or die one, cool. I unfortunately didn't have one of those. You know, she was gone, on the first thing smoking. And so, it was that grudge of like, oh, okay, you want to leave me? You want to leave me? Oh, okay, you forgot about me. You okay. I held I held a mental tally sheet of who was there and who wasn't, to where like when I got out and everyone would like, oh hey, what's up? No, 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 nah, get fuck off, and then I would use like it was like my fuel, like, okay, you thought I was done. Well, I got something for you, and so that, I mean, like I said, it could be bad, it could be good.
Sure.
Depends
No,
on how you use
I
it.
think it's a good thing, honestly. I kind of have a similar story of how I got in this seat at Kalinga College. My dad's best friend was the president of Lemoore College. And when I was going through my master's degree, we were at this banquet and I was standing in the line with him. And he's like, "Yeah, so you're getting your master's degree. What do you plan on?" And this was like, I considered this guy like an uncle to me,
Hmm.
family. And he had had a little bit to drink, so I can't completely. That's part of the reason I don't completely hold it against him, just a little bit. Um,
Hmm.
but I said, well, I kind of want to come back here and teach at the college. I had gone to that college, I got my associate's degree from that college. I grew up on the campus when my dad would go hang out with, his buddy during the day.
Yeah.
I'd go play around on the campus. And he looked me in the face and said, "You will never teach at my college until you get your tattoos removed, not covered up. You will get them removed, or you will never teach at my college." And I'm not at the same college. I'm in the same district.
Yeah.
I've got more tattoos now, and it was like
Yeah.
that. I wanted to prove to him
Yeah.
that one day I will be sitting in one of
Yeah.
these classrooms doing that. So I
Yep.
think that sometimes, and that's really, I think it says something for us as far as turning negatives into positives. We could have
Hmm.
just, I could have just said, man, screw that dude. Like, I'm never going to
Yeah.
talk to him again. But like you're saying, I wanted
Yeah.
to prove to him, you can't stop
Hmm.
me. Like these
Yeah.
tattoos don't stop me.
Yep.
Your
Yeah.
your uh your little, hangups about people with tattoos, that's not going to stop
Yeah.
me. I'm going to
Yeah.
prove to you that I'm going to make
Yep.
it to where you can't tell me no, kind of a
Yeah.
deal. So yeah, no,
Exactly.
I
And
get that.
you have to witness this. You will,
Hmm.
you're gonna be front row watching this,
Yep.
and I think that's something that, you know, all your guys in the Rising Scholars program, I think that's something that they should have, right? Because bro, life's gonna get hard, school's gonna get hard, like all this is, shit's gonna get super difficult to where you're gonna be like, dang man, like I'll be real, like prison is a lot easier. You wake up, okay, yeah, you may have to do a little razzle dazzle here and there. You might have to, get your face busted or bust someone's face, or that it comes with the territory, right? But that is easier to do than wake up every day at 7 in the morning, do the, bam, 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 boom. Oh, okay, shit, I have a paper due tonight. Oh, I have another B set due. I have this. I have lab. I have right. Like you need you need that hunger. You need to be like, nah, dude, like I'm doing this because I know at the end of the day I'm gonna be a fucking rock star. Like I'm gonna have a better life. You know.
Yep. And you had mentioned something while you were here that really stuck with me. I know, like you just said, that there's certain, I'm sure there's certain aspects of prison that are a lot easier. I have a buddy who's been in and out of prison more times than I wish he had been. Um, and he likes the structure of it. He likes the fact that he doesn't have to adult really. He can just,
Hmm.
somebody's going to tell him when he can go eat. Somebody's going to tell him
Hmm.
when, to go to bed, when to do this, when to
Hmm.
do that. And he likes
Yep.
that when he's given that out here, the freedom to, like you're talking about, you've got a lab. You don't have to. Nobody's
Hmm.
gonna, you're not gonna catch any points or anything by
Yeah.
not doing the lab.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
get booted out of school. So
Yeah.
it's a lot easier in this environment. But you said something here. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, a student asked how hard it was at Stanford. Um, and I think you had said something. This isn't a direct quote or anything, but it was like, if you can make it out of prison, you can make it at it, through any degree
Hmm.
program. Yes, it, like we just said, that yes, it's harder, but in some
Yeah.
like, I think what it touched with me was the resiliency of, especially for my rising scholar students. If there's 1,000 guys on the yard, we might have 100 guys in the rising scholars program. So they've already jumped through hoops because they're not just, oh,
Yeah.
you want to do it, oh, okay, here's a class.
Yeah.
You've got to
Yeah.
prove that, you're
Hmm.
vetted into that deal. So going
Yeah.
through that process, going from maybe being active to getting into that situation where you're being given those opportunities for education, that's not easy. That's not an easy feat to
Yeah.
do. And so that was something that you had said, if you can get through prison and get out and still, have your wits about you and your mental
Hmm.
capacity for that, the rest of it's just keeping yourself, like
Yeah.
you're saying now, keeping
Yeah.
yourself disciplined to get it
Yeah.
done. But
Yeah.
the
'Cause now
big
you're
part's
the
getting out.
one. Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah. Because now you're the one that's in charge of creating the structure,
Sure.
right? Um, like you said, I don't have someone telling me, "Hey, it's lab time right now. Hey, you should be doing this." Hey,
Yep.
like it's no, it's me keeping that structure, and
Sure.
so, um, yeah, if because maybe I should have elaborated more on it being easier in prison than the school. That's more pertaining to like you said, the structure, the someone there to say, hey, this is when you do this and that, right? um but surviving prison and getting out and still having that attitude of like, no, okay, now I'm gonna do better, like let's get it,
Mhm.
you have that, you're ready to tackle going to a university like Stanford, UCLA, like these. And that's one thing, right? Like people need to realize, like, hey, remember what you want, right? Like everyone has those big goals, right? Of like, okay, hey, I'm at the community college, I want to go to Berkeley, or I want to go to UCLA, or I want to go here, right? Like when you get there, remember that was your goal, right? And now it's time to see it through, no matter how freaking difficult it is. Because I'll be honest with you, there's right now in this quarter that I'm doing right now, I have a class that I spend maybe about 30 hours a week on, and that's just one class. I have three other classes that I'm taking. You know, it's a
Yep.
it's a mind game. It's at the end of the day, it's a mind game. It's who's gonna come out on top, who is stronger. Like because the resources are there. Office hours, you can go online, look stuff up, you could read the book, you could do all that, but you have to stay committed, you know.
Um, another question that I really liked that somebody asked was that many incarcerated individuals struggle with feeling unprepared for college. What advice would you give to somebody that's kind of in that mindset of like, man, like a lot of my guys, they if they did go to the high school, they mentally weren't at high school kind of a deal if they were there at all. Um,
Mm.
and going from that to incarceration, and then to get into, one of my college classes, uh, a lot of them, I can feel it on them that they're like, man, is this even like, can I even write you know a 2-page paper or a 3-page paper kind of a deal? um and I know, you might be an exception to a lot of the
Mhm.
rules that we see, but you were in with some of the same kind of mentality of just like,
Yeah.
bro, like, I need to just go find, like a construction job or something.
Hmm.
This college
Hmm.
stuff, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like
Yeah.
literally not doing here. I don't know what I'm doing in college. Like
Yeah.
this is like
Yeah.
a foreign language to me. What would you say
Hmm.
to those kind of people that might be struggling with that?
um Man, that's a tough question because it it has to do with, you know if possible, get that get that shit out of your brain. Like don't dwell on that. Don't think on that. Don't dwell on that. Don't even, give it any fuel to turn into this huge, you know storm in your mind. And the reason why I say that is because, um like my first semester at Fresno City College, I was placed into trig math class. I had no idea what the heck trig was. I had no idea what it dealt with. I literally didn't know jack shit about it, right? But what I did know was there was a tutorial center that I could go get help at, and the professor had office hours where I could go and talk to the professor and get help with my problems. And I say that because what it takes is to to know how to study. And it's a lot more simple than people think, right? Like, so say for instance you have a problem that you're stuck on, right? And you know that this particular you're covering, chapters 1 or chapter 1 sections 1 to 5 or something, right? Struggle with that, chew on that problem, right? Until you like really know it in and out, like you can recite it, by memory to the professor. Get that in, right? Read the book, uh, and then go to office hours. That right there will take care of any self-doubt, any negative mindset of like, oh, I'm not cut out for this, because it's putting in the work, right? Like you can't, like, you'll never know until you start putting in the work, right? And I feel like if you're already like shooting yourself in the foot, then why are you even entering the race? Like, just, and the way I look at it is like, and I told this to some, I went to go speak at a juvenile hall, because one of the kids there, he asked like, man, well, I'm afraid of math, but like I do want to pursue business, as my major, but I know I'm gonna have to do a lot of math. And I was like, look, youngster, you weren't scared to run around the streets with a gun, right? You were out there stealing cars with a loaded firearm, selling dope. You weren't scared of you weren't you weren't scared of of nothing, but you're scared of a math class. Make it make sense. The way that same mindset you have of like, oh man, I'm not going to back down from a fight, or I'm not going to back down. Take that to school, and you'll start to see like, oh, okay, and what's cool is like every little like victory that you have, it increases that confidence, right? Like now I can, look at as a matter of fact, I'm taking a graduate level math class for machine learning, and it's freaking brutally insane. But I had to build up that confidence even myself, to be like, okay, hey, I'm ready for this, and that comes from the little victories, But like I said, just take that mindset of you're not afraid to fight anyone to school, and
Right.
pursue education.
Sure. And I think too, kind of what we both had said is, a lot of times what I'll do if there's a problem that I don't think I can solve is I'll think about all the people like we were talking about that are like my uncle, my uncle
Hmm.
that was the president, like they think that I can't do it. And
Yeah.
it's like, they think, oh, and
Hmm.
there is the stereotype.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, how are you going to get this
Yeah.
person that's locked up to
Yep.
understand psychology? Well, show them that
Yeah.
you can, like,
Yeah.
prove to them, like,
Yeah.
look, I did it, like,
Yep.
if
Yeah.
if nothing else, just do it to spite somebody, if
Hmm.
nothing else.
Hmm.
um
Oh yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
turning those negative feelings into something positive is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
uh let's see here. Another question was, how did you navigate the transition from incarceration to higher education? What were the biggest challenges and how did you overcome them? So really getting from
Oh man.
being released and that life to
Hmm.
stepping onto, Fresno City and then Stanford's campus. I know you kind of mentioned that too
uh
in the talk that you did here, that shock to go
yeah.
through and how you thought you were going to be, when you were submitting those applications to these colleges, how
Hmm.
it was actually received.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think that that's a real important piece for us today, is that
Hmm.
when you were saying that you actually got the feedback um
Hmm.
from the
Yeah.
admissions people.
Yeah.
If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I have to say, and I've been thinking about this because um I don't know, I from time to time, if like I can't sleep and I'm just like not wanting to do homework, I'll sit and like reflect or read or something. But I was thinking about this question that you just asked. I was thinking about it about a week ago. Um, the main thing is killing that ego that comes from your previous life, right? Like it's easy to be like to think back of all the stuff that, one may have done in, their you know, gang lifestyle, whatever, running the streets, whatever, right? Like, oh, I'm so and so, or oh, I'm, whatever, baddest man on the planet, right? Like that mindset, that ego. Um, that's the hardest thing to deal with. That is the hardest thing to deal with because, prison has this high level of respect, right? Like for instance, if you and I are talking, we know like if someone wants to talk to you, they're gonna wait until like they see us completely done with the conversation, and if it's super important, then they'll come up and say, "Hey, excuse me, hey, all due respect," right? Like they're super respectful, and it's like, "Hey, no disrespect to you, but when you're done, I need to talk to you." Like it's very high level of respect. Whereas college campuses, you're not going to have that. Like some of these kids don't know. They're literally 18, 19 years old, and they're super like just naive to things, right? And so, for instance, there was plenty of times where, one time I was walking and talking with a professor, and somebody just like, as we're talking, somebody just walked right between us, didn't even say, excuse me, didn't say anything. And I'm like maybe a year out of prison, but like I'm still like kind of like I have those little ticks, and so like part of me was kind of like, like tell him something, like freaking, hey, come here, mother, you don't do, But then I had to realize like, no, bro, this is a different world. This is not prison. You are on a college campus. You can't get upset over every little thing because if not, you're not going to succeed. So I would say like realizing that and then just like killing that ego that comes from that previous lifestyle, you know what I mean, because you will get your ego crushed, like you're going to take a class that's going to just punch you in the mouth and you're going to barely survive, and you may have been killing classes, but you get to this one and it's just like, what is going on, right? Like that happens to every student, you know.
Mhm. Yep.
And I say every student because I see it here with some of these kids are some of the sharpest, smartest kids in the world, bro.
Mhm.
And they go through it as well. So it's like just prepare for it,
Yep.
and you know, basically it's an ego thing.
Yeah, that reminds me when I was the first time after I left community college and I went to my bachelor's program, I wrote this paper. I was so proud of this paper. It was in the college or the university I went to. We had faculty mentors. So you had
Hmm.
to meet not just with your counselor, but you had to meet with your faculty advisor as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was in my faculty advisor's class and I mistakenly wrote in the first person in my paper, and in
Hmm.
psychology with APA format, all that you always write in the third person. And I said, in my opinion or something like that.
Yeah.
And literally when I got that paper back, that that one sentence was circled with a red pin, and all over my paper was like, who are you again, why does your opinion matter, like just butchering me to death. It's like, bro, I
Yeah.
got it after the first insult. Like, why should I listen to you? I'm sorry, I didn't know you had a
Uh,
PhD.
yeah.
What does your opinion matter at all? And it was
Yeah.
literally like a big zero. Didn't even read it
Hmm.
anymore. My paper was like, rewrite this and turn it in. And I get what you're saying. It's like I was so offended by that. And I can
Yeah.
only imagine living the incarcerated life and playing with the politics to have somebody talk to you like
Yeah.
that. It's like it's a good thing
Yeah.
that was written down and not said to me, kind of a
Yeah.
deal, because
Yeah.
I probably would have taken way more offense if he would have
Hmm.
gone after me like that. But I think that's just part of the game that,
Yeah.
that has to be
Yeah.
played.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you're literally like you said, like you're literally it's like going from, you know, uh I don't know, playing cricket to playing basketball. Like it's
Right.
a whole different
Right.
set of rules. Like it's just things are done differently,
Mhm.
and you have to adapt to this system now. You have to adapt to this environment.
Right. Let that old system go. That
Yeah.
person's dead. A
Yeah.
lot of times I think of it like that, because given my background in psychology, I've taken classes and I've studied and I've researched a lot of different cultures, a lot of different religions and stuff like that. And it almost seems like, even in my situation, when I moved back here and took this position that I'm in now, I had to move back to a place, my hometown, where a lot of my friends from high school and stuff, I was a different person when I moved
Hmm.
away from this Central Valley and went on my
Yeah.
journey of getting my education. I
Yeah.
left a different person. And then when I came back, kind of like you were saying too about, you have to literally just tell a lot of your friends like, dude, we can't hang out. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like kind of like the shamans are talking about when they go through the spiritual stuff where they boil you down completely and then you're rebuilt as this
Yeah.
new person.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I had to deal with when I moved back here. It was like that's the person that's standing in front of you looks the same,
Hmm.
but I'm not the same person anymore, man. Like,
Yeah.
and if you're not going to do that,
Yeah.
sometimes you're guilty by association. Sometimes,
Hmm.
people just see you like in my position, if I were to go out with some of my old buddies to the local bar and they get in a bar fight and I'm with them,
Yeah.
even if I don't help, now I'm in the paper as
Yeah.
Kalinga College instructor gets in this, but and I
Yep.
didn't even do anything. Like I didn't even
Yep.
help,
Yep.
but just because I
Yeah.
was there. So no, that makes a lot of sense. Another one that's kind of along these, and I think you spoke about this too when you were here, was just your experience with going to Stanford for the first time. I mean, I know that Fresno City was a stop on your way. I've been to the Stanford campus, I've been to Fresno City campus, two completely different worlds, kind
Yeah.
of maybe, and maybe you didn't have this, you didn't really say this, but was there any kind of like imposter syndrome, like when you finally got to Stanford? Like, what am I doing here? Like,
Uh,
should I even be here? Like, do they
oh yeah.
actually know what,
Yeah.
like, do they know who's they've got walking on this campus right now?
Yeah.
Was there
Yeah.
any of that? And like, how'd you kind of deal with that?
Um, yeah. So I've actually had that imposter syndrome since my time at City College. And what kind of helped me, and I don't know, again, this may sound bad, but it's the truth, right? At least what helped me at Fresno City was like killing all the courses, right? And then going and tutoring those courses. Now it's like you have no choice but to respect my my intelligence, right? Like who cares what I look like?
Sure.
Everyone knows I've been to prison. By the time I left Fresno City, everyone knew, because um, especially at the tutorial center, because they did a background check, and so I had to tell them straight up, like, hey, I have a criminal record, right? And so um, that's what helped me at Fresno City with the imposter syndrome. When I got to Stanford, there was really nothing that I could do to help me with that. It's just something that we're gonna have to deal with. I feel like at this point, right? Like we're gonna have to we're gonna have to say, hey, like, no, I belong here. Like I put in the work to get here, right? Like I Stanford just doesn't let anybody in, right? Like you have to put in the work, right? And so it wasn't like some you know, affirmative action type stuff. Like it's like, no, it's you put in the work to get here. You belong here. Now figure out what journey you want to take. Is it going to be, you know, super difficult? You're going to, take an easier path, more less time consuming. Like what are you going to do, right? And so there's nothing really that can help. I mean, there are some classes that I've taken where like some of the other students are like, dude, why would you take that class? Like that's and it's kind of like, yeah, okay. Now you're starting to respect my brain power, right? But um outside of that, like I feel like it's just you're just gonna have to like just keep
Suck it
swimming
up,
basically.
suck it
Yeah,
up, and get after it.
yeah, because there are even, like I said, there are even kids here that come from very privileged backgrounds,
Mhm.
and even they have imposter syndrome sometimes,
Sure.
so
There was something that I wanted to kind of go back to real quick that I thought was really impactful when you were here, but you were talking about the feedback that you got when you
mhm,
applied for Stanford and got
mhm,
in and you got to actually read, because you had mentioned here, when you did that application, you wrote towards your time that you were incarcerated, and
Mhm.
really didn't look at that as a negative. You turned it into a positive thing.
Mhm.
Can you kind of talk about that whole deal where the
Yeah,
feedback that you got and stuff for some of the
yeah,
ones that might, think, we can say everything, but this is the proof. You're the proof.
yeah,
That's the big deal here is I can sit here, bang the drum that, anybody can change. Um, who am I to say that kind of a deal? I've never been incarcerated, stuff like that, but really focusing on that feedback that you got from your admissions stuff.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if they do this at other universities. I'll have to look into it, but I know here at Stanford, you can look at your application. You could see what was said, and you could see the grades that were given by the readers. And one of them was I forgot the exact words, but it was along the lines of like make sure the student is made aware of the resources available to him given his unique history. Ah, that's what it was. I said I didn't remember it word for word, but that's exactly what it was. And they referred to my prison experience as unique history, right? And it wasn't like they didn't, you know, oh, he's been to prison, don't let him in, right? Like, no, they saw like, oh shit, this guy has turned it completely around, and now look at what he's doing. Um, and so that's really universities like to see that. They want to see someone who's been in the trenches, been, in some really crazy situations and had the resilience to make it through. And so, um, like I talked about, when I was at Kalinga, when they asked if I been convicted of a felony, and I had to fill out the fill it all out and be like, I need some more room for these felonies. uh,
Yeah.
I thought I was cooked, man. I was like, oh, bro, I'm done. Like they're gonna see this and be like, man, what the hell? Like, hell no, we're not letting you in. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was able to show them like, hey, I'm turning this negative into a positive now, and this is how I'm going about it, and this is how I can benefit from Stanford, and so
Yeah.
um, it's definitely it's a lot more doable than people make it seem, you know.
Sure. Yeah. I just want to be respectful of your time. Are you good still, or do you got
Yeah.
any?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Let me
Perfect.
let me just get some more coffee real quick.
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
Yeah, so kind of to the point that you're just making right now, I do have to give a shout out to some of my guys about turning negatives into positives because um I teach on one yard where building one has Wi-Fi, buildings two, three, and four don't have Wi-Fi. And that to me, that is a true, I'm not knocking any of the other equity issues that we deal with, but that's a true equity issue for me because you've got students that are taking the same class and just because of the building that they're in, don't have, and I can see in the level of the homework that comes into me. I can sometimes, not always, tell who's got Wi-Fi in their building and who doesn't.
Mm,
And one of the things is you can complain about something or you can change something. And
yeah.
they're not going to CDCR is not going to just bring a box of Wi-Fi extenders and say, hey guys, here you go, put them up, kind of a deal. You're waiting on them to do it. So
Yeah.
I do a project in my class, my personal psychology class, of what would make this yard better, kind of a deal. And it's supposed to be grassroots. It's something that you can do. You're not relying on CDCR, like I said, to buy and install the Wi-Fi. Anyway, I have a group of guys that they actually went to the captain on the yard and they got it approved to where anybody who's in Rising Scholars program, um, if they want to move to building one, the the captain agreed to kind of sort the people who are not in education out of building one and really making building one a college building.
Nice,
And they
nice.
also extended the amount of time that they can have in the day room because we offer, well, we don't, CDC offers 1 hour, maybe 2 hours once a week of study hall time. You're getting your
Hmm.
education, bro. You've been to community college. 2 hours doesn't get it done. So they've actually extended that time to where the doors are going to be open. Guys can come down, work in the day room on their homework, and have the Wi-Fi. So it was really, we could sit here and bitch and moan about, this building doesn't have Wi-Fi, that building doesn't have Wi-Fi, or you can turn the negative into the
Yeah,
positive and not just say we deserve it because we're no, tell the captain why. What's the why
yeah,
here? And they
yeah,
did that. And within, a week or 2 weeks, the captain had approved it and now it's in motion. So
yeah.
change is slow coming. A lot of
Hmm.
times you get frustrated that things aren't happening fast enough, but change is possible.
Yeah,
If the minute you stop believing that change is possible, you're done.
yeah.
You might as well just hang it up
Exactly.
and
Hmm.
this is
Call
your
it a day.
career now, is
Yeah,
being a incarcerated individual. This is
yeah,
your lifelong career. If you're going to give up, if you're not going to give
yeah,
up, there's always hope.
yeah,
Kind of a deal.
yeah.
So that
And
was something like,
whoever did that, whatever group of guys did that, man, make sure that they put that on their applications when they apply to universities,
yeah, yeah,
straight up, because say um I mean, eh, you know, I thought I had it all figured out when I was in, going from, Fresno City to Stanford, and oh, all I need is the electrical engineering knowledge. I don't need all this writing and speaking crap. And like I said in my presentation, or speaking to Kalinga, I'm not using anything from my electrical engineering
yeah,
degree. I'm not using jack shit. I'm not using V equals IR. I'm not using, my circuit analysis. I'm not using any of that. What
right,
I'm using the most now is communication, public speaking, and writing, right? And it's like those are the three main pillars right now that I feel like are some those three things. If you can become an expert in those three things, you can take over the freaking world, because AI cannot replace that. And
sure,
so, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole of AI, but I say that because those guys can say, "Hey, we were in prison. We negotiate, like we talked to the captain.
sure,
You know what I mean? The captain of this yard, and we got it to where, okay, this is what man, that speaks volumes, right?
right.
And so if you're, going in, if say they're going into like a, I don't know, a communications degree, or they're doing something, that is kind of falls under those, you know, three things that I mentioned,
Mhm.
bro, that strengthens their application,
Sure.
tenfold. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely something to put in there.
Yeah, and I know, kind of the way that that works is once, the other captains here, once the warden hears that that happened, that there's kind of a college building now on that yard,
Hmm.
the potential, I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but the potential for, the captain on the next yard over, well, I want to be, we have a college yard, we have a college building too, not just, they're not the only
Yeah,
one. So it's a domino effect that could happen to where they might have changed more than they thought they were changing,
exactly.
in a positive
Exactly.
way.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, and I actually have another group of guys that they they built out a program, or they're building out a program as we speak. It's called helping at risk youth.org, and they're actually building curriculum for juveniles who might be
Mm.
going, there might be at a fork in the road kind of a
Yeah.
deal. And
Yeah.
hopefully they're going to get it into the probation systems to maybe be a step before juvenile hall
Mm.
going through
Mm.
that program. And they're writing their stories, of how they got there. And I honestly believe, there's one guy that um, he's a little different, as far as the way he approaches stuff and things like that. And I was talking to the guy who's spearheading this website, and I'm like, dude, there's a kid out there just like him that needs to hear from him, doesn't need to hear from me, doesn't need to hear
Yeah.
from you, that needs to hear from him. Like,
Hmm.
it's great, it's something that everybody can do. So, I mean, just the encouragement, and given the space to do those projects, I think
Yeah.
is really important in that environment. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want
And
go ahead.
uh, um, oh, don't worry about time. Don't. It's
No, I got you.
I'm yeah. I can um, you know, all the labs that I have to do, they yeah, I'm well ahead of where I need to be as
Cool.
far as turning them in. So I'm good on time. And but I something came to mind right now when you said, when you're bringing all this up, like we now have to remember with every step that we take, right? And when I say we, I mean like guys like myself, guys like in the Rising Scholars, right? I may no longer be in prison, but I've been there, done that, right? These guys are still in prison. They're under more of a microscope than I am, meaning if they start to fuck up, that's a good way for the administration to be like, see, you guys really aren't. Yeah, you guys are fucking bullshitters. Shut this program down, right? Like we need to have that. That needs to be something that is not communicated on the daily, but like we need to have those reminders of like, no, okay, hey, as we're elevating in life, we need to maintain that. Like there is no more like, oh, I feel plagued, let's go catch this fade or whatever. No, no, there is no more of that. What it is you simply come to an agreement, maybe, wash hands, whatever the hell you need to do, but is now you're holding yourself to a higher standard. This is a higher, more elevated way of life. And so as the men are moving through, they need to start thinking like that because they're going to get out and they're going to be in, bro, some of my professors are billionaires, like with a B, billionaires, some of them were, one of them's the reason why we have Toy Story. One of them's the reason why, uh, 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 we have all these CGI effects in Pirates of the Caribbean and all, like these guys are billionaires, right? And they are at a different level. And when you go to speak with them, you can tell right off the bat they're at a different level. And so it forces you to be like, okay, hey, now I'm gonna step it up, right? Like if I were to start acting stupid and dumb and all this other shit, they would, I would, I would probably mess it up for the guys that are coming up behind me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They would see them and be like, oh no, we saw how stupid Paul was. Like he's over
Yeah.
here acting a fool. You're gonna do the same, So we need to keep that, like that needs
Sure.
to be here.
Sure. No, and that's the thing. I think it's important. I mean, it's an ugly part of our world, but there's just as many people, if not more people, waiting for you to fail as
Yeah,
there are waiting for you to succeed.
yeah,
They want to be the person that says, like you said, see, I
yeah,
told you this was a dumb
yeah,
idea. Like,
yeah,
what did you
yeah,
think was going to happen? Kind of a
yeah.
deal.
Oh, you
Um,
want to give the guys education in prison? Oh, I can't stand those motherfuckers, bro. Oh my god. Oh, I just want to like, oh, shut up.
yeah,
But again, you can't. You
sure,
have to. You got to beat them at their own game,
sure.
and that
And
comes with getting that degree.
that was really my deal when I was uh coming up through the ranks of teaching rising scholars. When I really didn't, I kind of knew my why, but if I look back now, I had no idea what my why was compared
Mm,
to what it is now. Um, but yeah, just I mean, if I was judged on the worst mistake I ever made still to this day, um, I wouldn't uh, my mental condition would just be so far beyond what it is, if that makes
mm,
any sense. I don't
yeah,
want to be judged for the one worst thing. Maybe I should have been judged when I was,
yeah,
for doing that thing, by my parents, whoever.
hmm,
But if I was still reminded of it to this day,
yeah,
it's like, come on, man, that's not that's not fair.
yeah,
Like, come on, like let's move
yeah,
forward, kind of a deal.
hmm,
So yeah. Um, Another question that this kind of getting into a whole different area of the questions, is actually one of my favorites was you've spoken about giving back to your community and some of the stuff that I watched. There was a YouTube podcast that I watched a little bit of with you, and you'd spoken about giving back to your community. But what role do you think formerly incarcerated individuals or currently incarcerated individuals can play in helping people that are still inside? You know, what can somebody that's currently incarcerated, or maybe like somebody like yourself who's out, what can let's start with the first. If somebody that's still incarcerated, what would you say, now that you're out, now that you can have time to look back at the whole process that you've gone through, um, what can somebody that's still incarcerated do to give back to their community that they're in now?
Yeah, that's there's a lot of there are a lot of factors, a lot of moving parts to that, because the reason why I say that is because, for one, you know, that whoever you're gonna, like, minister to or speak to, or communicate to, or whoever you're trying to show, hey, look at what education can do for you, they have to be open to that, right? Like, had you walked into the prison I was at, the first, you know what, 6 years of my sentence, and said, hey man, like, I would have been like, oh cool, dude, all right, because I was still like, no, this is what I want to do, like, I want to wreak havoc, this is fun stuff, right? And so, I, it would have just poop right over my head, right?
Right.
Now, if you have someone that's kind of teetering on the fence, right? That's like, they know like this isn't what they want to do, right? But there are some days where they're kind of like, prison ain't bad, or hey, running the streets is kind of fun, like they're still, teeter tottering. Um, the best, I feel like the way you can serve them is just by showing what is possible. Don't try to sit there and be like, hey man, what you're doing right now is not right, and you need to turn your life around. That is going to then force them back to being like, oh, okay, well, fuck off, I'm going to do what I want to do, right? And so, though, I feel like with those kind of people, it's more of like just showing them what it can do, right? Like showing them what education can do, showing them how fun it is to learn and and solve a problem, or dude, we're learning stuff. You're learning stuff that the majority of the world doesn't know, and you're incarcerated. That just goes to show the power of your mind. And so, I would say it's more, for someone like that, more along the lines of showing, not telling.
Mhm.
And then, if they are like, just they're already, all gas, no brakes for education, I would say, doing your best to form that community, to where, like, when they are having a bad day and they're like, man, fuck school, like, I'm tired, they have you as that support system, and maybe some of the other guys, however, whatever community of scholars, right? To kind of pick that person up, but I feel like it just depends on where that person is in life.
Right. And it depends. Like that's one of the things that I've noticed, one of the challenges of teaching rising scholars, it's not the guys, it's not any of that. It's going from A yard to B yard is like going like starting in Fresno and getting on a plane and flying to like Shanghai. Like you get off the
Yeah.
plane and it's a whole different world kind of a deal. And what this yard needs from you and what is possible on this yard, you go over to this yard and it's like that
Yeah.
isn't even gonna fly. Like forget about that kind of a deal.
Yeah.
So there is that challenge too
Yeah.
of, you
I
know,
can imagine, like, it's it's just
yeah,
complete, just
right.
complete opposite sides of the spectrum.
But I said this before, this isn't the number one reason that I like to teach rising scholars, but I've become such a better teacher because, especially in my subject, you're a STEM guy. I'm psychology, and I think of like psychology, sociology, the ethnic studies classes that we have now, things like that. If you want to be the best, like ethnic studies especially, you want to be the best
Mhm.
ethnic studies teacher in the world, go teach in a prison because you have a melting pot of every religion, every race,
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
every age group, every like
Yeah. Yeah.
you can never become, there's never a more perfect environment to grow as an educator as in the Rising Scholars system.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's amazing. And
Hmm.
that's one of my selling points when I try to talk people into, grabbing a Rising Scholars class or something is you'll never understand until you try how much
Yeah.
you will learn as a teacher by going out there. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I hope, I mean, because I just, like I said, though, yeah, certain, like for instance, your field, you need a graduate degree, right? Because
sure,
all professors do,
right,
they need at least a master's, right? Especially at the
right.
community college level. Um, but part of my, what I want to do eventually is go back and teach, go into prisons, but teach like maybe math or some type of, computer science course or electrical
Mhm.
engineering or something, right? Because um, we're I can't stand this, but like there are a lot of like people in the world that are like, oh, it's too hard, don't bother with it. It's like, no, like you can get this stuff, dude. You can,
Sure,
it's not impossible, right? Like,
right.
and so I just would, I want to do that because I want to open up more of the rising scholars to like engineering,
Mhm.
and you know, even going to a place like Fresno State, if you're trying to stay within the Central Valley, Fresno
Sure.
State's the, you know, perfect school to go to. And real quick before we jump to the next question, that leads me to like say for instance, one of the guys gets out and they really want to live in the Bay Area because I don't know, they like the Bay Area, whatever, right?
Mhm.
Whatever the reasons may be, but they see themselves like starting in the Bay Area. They should transfer to a school in the Bay Area, right? Like they should go to San Jose State, Berkeley, Stanford. Like they should go to some school that's in the vicinity. Um, just just like if you're trying to stay in the Central Valley, Fresno State, you
Sure.
know.
Yep.
Um, it just makes it easier for the connections, for the networking, for someone to say, oh snap, oh okay, yeah, you're Fresno State alumni too. Hell yeah, okay, boom. Believe it or not, that helps. That
Sure.
helps
No, for
get
sure.
your uh, uh instead of instead of having that gang pride, it's school pride.
Right.
It's like, it's like, oh, you're one of me too. Even though you graduated 5 years after me, it's you're still from the same school. I got you.
Right. Yep. No, I agree with you. We're getting into some of the bigger questions here.
Nice, nice.
Uh, what would you say to someone who feels like they don't deserve a second chance?
Mm. Man, um,
Or did you ever feel like you didn't deserve one?
you know, I I did, I did, and it was about, so it came about um like realizing, so let me just kind of give some context here. um I want to say maybe like the first 2 years of my release, which was also some of my time at Fresno City. I had a lot of homeboys that were either they overdosed or they were killed. And then I had a few homeboys that were just they were just stuck. They just could not leave the meth alone. Like I would come across them in the streets, right? And we would catch up, and they would ask like, hey man, what have you been up to? And oh, school. And then, oh cool, that's what's up, man. And you know part of me wanted to ask them like what they were up to, just to show like, hey man, I still care about you, dude. Like even though we're not doing the same things in life, you were once one of my friends, one of my homeboys. And it pains me to see you still you know stuck at that level where you feel like you need the meth to, you know, function or to enjoy life, right? And there was a time where I saw a homeboy that was, you know, strung out, and he ended up catching a murder case shortly after, and then like, man, like within that t- time span, like a couple of my friends, a couple of my homeboys were murdered, and I was just thinking like, dang, dude, like, do I really like deserve, like, am I, like, what am I doing here? Like, do I really deserve this school? Like, should I continue with my education? Like, what am I doing here? Like, I have all these friends that are getting killed or catching a life sentence or going to do a life sentence, right? And it's like, and yet here you are in your own little world going to school, amongst all this chaos. And so there was a time, in that area, like in that point in my life where I was thinking like, dude, like, do you even really deserve this? But then I had to sit back and reflect, like, no, I do deserve it because I'm putting in the work for it, right? And so for someone that doesn't believe that they deserve a second chance, they have to, for one, they have to be really honest with themselves and ask, are they putting in the work for that second chance? And I don't just mean educationally. I'm assuming, this question is coming from someone who's been down a long time and who probably has done some things that the majority of the world would be like, oh no, you never should come out, right? And with that, before you even get to the school part is, where are you at with, you know forgiving yourself, you know making amends, doing your best to show and prove, like, oh no, like, not to the world, right? Because the world is always going to have their opinions, but to yourself, like, no, I do deserve the second chance. Yeah, okay, I made a grave mistake, and yeah, it may have cost a bunch of lives, may have destroyed a family, whatever the case may be, right? Only they know. But they need to ask themselves, like, are they putting in the work to, like, be at peace with themselves and know, like, okay, I'm taking full responsibility for my actions. I'm moving forward, like, with with a positive mindset to change, to do my best to heal what I've split apart, right? And so I feel like that happens before education, right? And the sooner they can do it, the better, because then it'll lead to a more enjoyable time in college to where they're not having those thoughts.
Yeah. And that's what really, and I probably should have prefaced this when we first got started. This talk wasn't all just about, the education piece of it. It's really the resiliency, the total picture of what steps you've got to take, because you are not the norm.
Yeah.
You're a very, very, very special case here. Um, and what, like, the big picture of not just, maybe education isn't for somebody, maybe they want to come out, and I have a lot of guys in business degrees, and I'm like, what are you planning on doing with a business degree? And I've had a guy say, well, before I came in here I was a welder, just like you were saying. Like, I was a welder, I grew up welding. I'm taking a business degree because when I get out I want to open my own welding company, kind of a deal.
Mm.
And so just seeing the big picture of things, um, I think is really important. And if you're it all goes back to that. It's one of those tough answers, is if you've got to believe in yourself. If
Yeah.
Until you believe in yourself, you're just going to spin your wheels.
Hmm.
That's kind of like when I think of, like, in psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's the foundation of this whole picture, is the self belief that I do
Yeah.
deserve another chance. I
Yeah.
can do something.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, there's a video. It's called 5 Block, where they go into Lancaster State Prison and they follow this gentleman around for the day. And he says, he's like, my whole dream when I first got in here, well, before I got in here, my dream was to run the hood. And then when I got in here, I couldn't wait to get released and get out, not go back to the hood. And then he basically said, but if I don't go back to the hood, I leave all the future me's behind in the hood
Hmm.
to deal with the same bullshit that got me in here. He's like, now I'm
Yeah.
at the point where I want to go back to the hood and I want to change the hood. So kids like me don't keep from my hood, don't keep coming back here. I want to make the
Yeah.
hood a beautiful neighborhood, not the hood, a
Yeah.
beautiful neighborhood that kids can run around, not worry about the same shit that I worried about when I was a kid running the streets of the hood. Um,
Yeah.
and that was a big, you know, I think part of the deal that I deal with, from my role in all of this is, yes, I've studied the whole part of my master's degree I devoted to uh, restorative justice, recidivism, all these different things. Um, but I grew up with the stereotype. What does the media portray incarcerated individuals as? And it's Oz and it's Prison Break and it's,
Yeah.
all these TV shows.
Yeah.
I literally was shaking like a leaf the first time I went to class at Pleasant Valley State Prison. Like I was scared to death, thinking, I'm gonna I'm gonna get punked, like everybody's gonna be doing this and that. And it's like what I found was completely like
Yeah.
I found good people. And I
Yeah.
say that like almost ashamed to say that now because of
Hmm.
what I like my eyes have been opened. Um
Yeah.
and it's like the people that can change the hood are in my class. It's
Yeah.
just making that step to do so. Um I have one more question for you. If you could go back and talk to yourself while you were still incarcerated, what would you say to yourself?
Hmm.
It can be about change, it can be about motivation, it could be about anything. Just what would you say? There's no right answer to this one for sure.
Um, Man, I would probably have to like hone in on when I would say this, because for sure, like the first, like I said, the majority of my sentence, minus like the last couple years, I was just straight, knucklehead mode. Like I didn't like I it, there was going to be no convincing me of uh a better way of life, of education, of I was not doing any of that. Like, no, you have the wrong person. You're wasting your time. Take that elsewhere, right? So, um, I would have to keep it very, very short, and I say that because um, I feel like for me, like it's always like little bits of information that really stick to what I can remember. Um, but it would probably be something along the lines of take all the risks, and I don't mean that like in the street life, like kind of push more dope or whatever. Um, I mean that in like in the things I've come to realize, in the things that scare you the most, uh, that's where you grow, and like you become such a different person. Like, to word this without trying to sound arrogant or whatever. um it, the reason why I have this mindset and this like knowledge now is because I've I haven't done it at every step of my journey, but I've done it enough to where like I've benefit from it. And what I've done is I have taken those risks. That super difficult class, that super crazy project, whatever the case may be, right? Like, do not be afraid of failure. Like, do not, if you fail, so what? Right? Like, everybody fails. I mean, look at every great athlete. Look at the Michael Jordans, the Tom Brady's. They have failed. They have made it to the Super Bowl and lost. They have, they've lost championships, right? But one thing is they will take those risks. And so I say that because, when your rising scholars get out, I want them to take all the risks, right? Like if you think, for instance, on campus, we have like, there's this group that does, man, they do phenomenal plays, right? And like, one of their next play is going to be like the Hunchback of Notre Dame or something, right? But like, say you've always wanted to know what it was like to participate in that or do theater or something, fucking do it. Do it. Like, who cares, right? Like, if there's something that, like, and you're kind of scared about it, you're like, oh, but what if I fail? Right then and there, that should be your cue. Okay, do it. If you ask yourself, what if I fail? Do that. Do whatever it is that that decision is, right? And again, I'm saying like in a positive manner. I'm not
Yeah,
saying like, oh, homeboy can give me 5 keys. No, no. I mean, on this walk, on this side of the fence, right? Like, if it, and I feel like those are the regrets that I have leaving Stanford. Like, I regret not going to some events because I thought, oh, I don't fit in. I regret not participating in certain clubs and stuff because I was like, oh, I don't fit in. I'm the only ex-con on campus, right? Like, I regret every single bit of that because I haven't it took away from me actually enjoying Stanford at its fullest, right? So that's why I say, man, take those risks. If it's something that sounds scary to you or you sound like, "Oh, I might not be cut out for that," just do it. Just fucking send it and you know, and get knee deep into it. Just jump in head first.
sure. Yeah, and what I'm really hearing is get out of your own way,
Yeah.
because that's
Oh
really
yeah.
a lot of times we think, like just for instance, like what you're saying, like, oh, is Stanford going to accept me, this and that kind of, am I going to be accepted on campus, things like that. It's like nine
Hmm.
times out of 10, we're more in our way than what we think the external factors. We're more
Yeah.
internally in our way, our own way, than
Yeah.
people on the outside of us are in our
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
We're our biggest critics and our worst enemies most of the time, and just
Hmm.
really getting out of your way. Um, so yeah,
Real quick, I have something that I want to pull up real quick. Hold on. I
sure.
just need to find I need to remember her name. Okay, there we go. Hold on. Let me see here. Um, let me pull this quote up. Oh man. Oh, okay, here it is. So this woman is a Holocaust survivor and she's a psychologist. Have you heard of Edith Egger?
I don't believe so.
Um,
Sounds familiar,
she's
but I can't tell you for sure, so I'll say no.
yeah, okay. So she has this quote. So she survived the Holocaust and um during the Holocaust, she would often dance for the Nazi soldiers, and a lot of people were like perplexed by like, why would you do that? Like what, you know? Um, but it's because she used that as an escape from like her physical conditions, right? And so she wasn't dancing for them; she was dancing for herself, you know. And her quote is, "The greatest prison that you'll ever live inside is the prison that you create in your mind." And um, I came across that and was like, whoa, like that is insanely like accurate. Right. And so I say that because I created that prison while I was here at Stanford. Oh, I'm an ex-convict, man. Like, bro, you're literally around kids who come from the top 1% families in the world. Like uh, uh, um, a buddy of mine, he's a TA for a computer science class, and one of his sectionees, one of the kids that he is, that's taking the class that he's a TA for, had like $4 million in a bank account. Like he, accidentally like looked over because he was looking at his Fidelity bank account, and he had like, he's a millionaire and he's freaking 19, and so it's like you have these kind of families on campus, these kind of kids. And so knowing that, like, I created that prison where I was like, oh man, I'm not gonna go. Like I spent my first year here in my apartment 24/7. Like I would watch lecture from, online. I would do the homework, at my apartment. Like I never left my apartment, and so I say all that so that, like, when your scholars get out and they do go to these universities, like they don't create that prison in their mind, like they can break free of that and, get involved in things they never thought that could interest them, like I said, playing, doing a play, getting into theater or whatever the case may be, like whatever, there's a million opportunities at every university. And so it's like, just for them to kind of, have that mindset when they get there,
Find their gem.
yeah, yeah.
Well, that's all I have for questions. Is there any other things you wanted to say before I stop the recording here?
No, no, I mean, I feel like, they, if I can be of any assistance, make sure, um, you connect whoever, with, me or whatever the case may be. You have my information, my contact information.
Yeah.
So if I can, help in any way, um, let me know. Um, Other than that, no, I feel like, I like that quote, and I want to leave them with that quote, and that little bit of knowledge from that.
Sweet. Well, I'm gonna stop the recording and we can wrap this up as soon as that happens. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate
Yeah,
all of this stuff, and I'm sure my guys will appreciate it too.